The series begins with a handsome, wealthy young man named John, who goes to attend his friend's wedding. There, he sees a beautiful girl named Sohee and learns that she is the bride's closest friend. Sohee keeps singing and dancing at the wedding, impressing everyone with her voice and drawing the crowd into her performance. When she finishes, she asks the groom to take good care of her friend and wishes them a happy life. She tearfully bids her friend farewell, saying she will miss her, moving everyone with her words. People even envy the depth of their friendship. But soon we discover the truth. Sohee is actually an actress, and she often plays this role for brides who have no close friends. After the wedding, the bride thanks her for everything she did, pays her the agreed upon amount, and tells her that her acting is so convincing that everyone believed they were truly best friends. Meanwhile, John approaches the groom to discuss business. We learn that John also came to the wedding for personal gain. He wanted to buy a piece of land. Using his charm, he succeeds in persuading the groom to sign the contract. John leaves the hall pleased with himself, but then suddenly bumps into Sohee. They both fall to the ground, annoyed with each other, each blaming the other for the accident. As they pick up their scattered papers, Sohee storms off before an argument can break out. Shortly after, Sohee gets a call from her childhood friend Young, who tells her he has just returned from America. At the same time, John receives a message from Young as well, revealing that Young is actually his brother. On the plane, we see Young sitting beside a wealthy young woman, a relative, who tells him their families want them to marry for the sake of business ties. She suggests he accept, but Young refuses to marry for convenience and feels conflicted about what to do. Later, John arrives at the company but notices an elderly woman selling sweets outside in the cold. Feeling sorry for her, he buys everything she has to help her. During a company meeting, the director announces a project that requires land, and everyone is shocked when John reveals he has already purchased it. Although the problem is solved, the director treats John harshly, which confuses the employees, since they believe he's just an ordinary staff member. Soon it is revealed that John is actually the grandson of the company's owner. His grandfather himself had asked the director to treat John strictly in front of the staff. The director later apologizes and drives John to the airport, reminding him that Young is arriving soon. At the airport, however, Sohee arrives first. Overjoyed to see Young again, she hugs him, surprised at how handsome he has become. She offers to drive him home, but a journalist secretly photographs them together. The picture soon reaches John, shocking him to see his brother with a girl, though her face is hidden, so he doesn't recognize Sohee. On the way, Young asks Sohee about her life and whether she has achieved her dream of becoming an actress. Embarrassed, she avoids telling him the truth, that she has been resorting to scams lately, because she fears he will think of her as a failure. Instead, she asks him why he returned from America. He explains that their grandfather is ill and wants to see him before he dies. So he drops him at home, even giving him some money because she assumes he is poor and then leaves. Later, Sohee heads to the filming of her drama. Rushing to change into costume, it's revealed that she only has a tiny role, a single scene, but she performs it brilliantly. Afterward, she pleads with the director for a bigger chance, but he refuses, saying she is unreliable with her timing, and goes back to speak with the show's lead actress. The actress refuses to do a horseback riding scene out of fear, leaving the director frustrated. At that moment, Sohee volunteers to do it instead. To everyone's surprise, she turns out to be an expert rider and delivers the scene flawlessly. After filming, she meets her friends. We learn that she had borrowed one of their cars to impress Young, making him believe she was wealthy and successful. When her friends ask why she lied, she admits that she only wanted him to think she had made it as an actress, since he was always the one who encouraged her to chase her dream. A flashback reveals that 5 years earlier, Sohee was arrested after fighting with a theater troupe. The officer was shocked she managed to take them all on alone, but she explained, crying, that she knew martial arts and had only defended herself because they tried to harass her. At that time, Young came to her rescue, got her released, and comforted her. He told her he believed in her talent and urged her never to give up on acting until she achieved her dream of becoming famous. Snapping back from her memories, we see that despite years of effort, Sohee has never truly gotten her breakthrough. The lead actress later thanks her for stepping in during the scene but mocks her at the same time. This hurts Sohee deeply, especially since they were once classmates in college, and the lead actress only succeeded in the industry because of money and connections. Meanwhile, at John's house, his grandfather gathers the whole family to announce his will, but what he reveals shocks everyone. Everyone is shocked when the grandfather insists that Young marry his cousin, promising that once he does, he'll make him the head of the company. His other grandchildren get angry, protesting his decision, but the grandfather says he only truly trusts Young and John. He explains that he chose Young because he's the eldest, and once he marries his cousin, the company will grow even stronger. But Young refuses, saying he doesn't love her and doesn't even want to run the company. His words stun everyone. John tries to persuade him not to throw away the opportunity and reminds him of the girl he saw with him at the airport. John even shows him their photo together. Furious, Young realizes his brother has been having him followed. To get back at him, he lies, saying that he's in love with that girl and will never marry anyone else. This frustrates John, who feels the opportunity is slipping away. Determined to put an end to it, he decides to meet Sohee and make her stay away from his brother. At that moment, Sohee is at home with her family, and we discover they are poor, all crammed into one small house, barely making ends meet, each one busy with their own struggles. The next day, she goes to the studio, dressed in costume for her film role. Suddenly, John appears, and she is surprised to see him. He asks to speak with her privately. Suspicious, Sohee calls Young to let him know his brother is with her. From him, she learns that Young lied about them being in a relationship just to escape the arranged marriage. He asks her to help him out, just like she used to in school. Flashbacks show us that, back then, Young was bullied for being lonely and friendless. Students used to beat him, but Sohee stood up for him, fought the bullies, and declared that she was his friend, warning anyone who dared to mess with him. Back in the present, Sohee agrees to help. She sits with John and boldly tells him that she and Young love each other. Then she walks away to film her scene. John follows and offers her money, but she rejects him outright, pretending he's harassing her. The director threatens to call the police, and John is left shocked, watching from a distance as Sohee performs. During filming, Sohee mounts the horse again, but the lead actress, jealous of her, demands the scene be repeated over and over until the horse grows tired and throws Sohee off. She crashes hard to the ground and loses consciousness. An ambulance rushes her to the hospital. John, who witnessed everything, feels deeply sorry for her and stays by her side until she wakes. Injured and with a broken arm, Sohee insists on leaving anyway. She thanks John and makes him promise not to tell anyone what happened, since she's pretending to be a successful actress with big roles. John drives her home, impressed by her boldness, though still believing she's his brother's girlfriend. The next day, Sohee meets Young again, but they notice a photographer secretly spying on them. Young chases him down, while Sohee manages to pin the man to the ground and take his camera. Young deletes the photos, and Sohee, puzzled, asks why his family is watching him. He tells her she'll understand once she meets them. Meanwhile, John starts digging into Sohee's background and discovers that she takes on any role, no matter how small. He concludes that she and Young are conspiring to fake their relationship. He calls her, demanding a meeting, but she tells him that Young has invited her to their house that very night. Alarmed, Young rushes to catch her before she meets his grandfather, but it's already too late. Desperate, Young asks Sohee to pretend to be his girlfriend and even marry him, offering her a large sum of money in return. Shocked, Sohee can hardly believe what he's saying. At that moment, John arrives and overhears everything. He recalls painful childhood memories. Their mother, who had secretly married and given birth to them, died, forcing them to live with their grandfather. Ashamed of them, the grandfather treated them harshly. John swore he would one day make his grandfather acknowledge him. He studied tirelessly without sleep, always coming first in class, and later worked hard at the company just to prove himself. Snapping out of his memories, John grows angry, realizing that if Young marries Sohee, all his sacrifices will go to waste. Sohee, caught in the middle, feels torn and doesn't know what to decide. Young asks her to wait for him in the garage and gives her his car keys. But suddenly, a gang appears, intending to kidnap her. Fearless, Sohee warns them she's strong and threatens to turn them into shawarma if they come closer. She prepares to fight, but suddenly John arrives, his face hidden under a helmet. He grabs her hand and pulls her into the car. Once she realizes it's John, she refuses to stay with him and demands to get out. He doesn't stop, so she threatens to jump from the moving car. Claiming she's skilled enough, she opens the door and leaps, but instead crashes into a pole, knocking herself unconscious. With no choice, John takes her home. The next day, Sohee wakes up, only to discover she is inside John's house. Sohee sits with John and asks him to explain everything that's going on. John decides to tell her the full truth. Their family is wealthy, and their grandfather wants Young to marry his cousin, but Young refuses because he loves her. Sohee is shocked by this revelation. Soon, Young arrives and takes Sohee away. He tells her that he doesn't want to take over the company and asks her to marry him instead to save him from the arranged marriage. Sohee, upset that he hid the truth from her, refuses and leaves. Later, she finds out she has been fired from her job after falling from the horse during filming. She goes to meet her friends to relax, but Young sends her a message apologizing and asking for her help. She doesn't respond, and instead recalls memories of working together with him before he left for America. Back then, they worked part-time together. And when they received their wages, Young gave her his share and encouraged her to take acting lessons so she could pursue her dream. Reflecting on this, So-hee feels guilty because he has always supported her. She decides to look for work, dressing in disguise, and attends a children's party where she performs. John watches her, and after the event, he sits with her and apologizes for being unfair. He even offers her money to stay away from his brother. So-hee is torn and unsure whom to trust, but reluctantly accepts the money because her father needs a hair transplant. Later, conscience-stricken, she decides to cancel the operation and returns the money to John that evening. She also asks him to drink with her before she marries Young. She questions why he is doing all this, assuming it is to make his brother the heir. John explains that Young once saved his life, and he is just repaying the favor. So-hee is moved by his words and starts to feel attracted to him. They continue drinking until they become dizzy and begin hallucinating. John drives her home, but along the way, they encounter her grandfather waiting outside the house to warn her away from Young. In their drunken state, they mistake him for a taxi driver and get into the car with him by accident. During the ride, John is distracted and tells her that their grandfather has always been harsh and never acknowledged him. So-hee tells him not to be upset and insults the grandfather, unaware he can hear everything. The grandfather drives them back to his house. The next morning, Young wakes to find them having breakfast with the grandfather. Afterwards, So-hee decides to carry out her agreement with John. She tells the grandfather she will stay away from Young, pretending she is upset, and asks him to make Young the heir to protect Young's future. Later, Young confronts her, accusing her of abandoning him. So-hee tries to explain that she acted for his own benefit, but he refuses to accept it and leaves angry. So-hee feels guilty for what happened. Meanwhile, John convinces his cousin to marry Young to secure the heirship. He also discovers that her boyfriend is a director and arranges for So-hee to receive a major acting role as a reward. So-hee is overjoyed, celebrates with her friends, and believes she has finally achieved her dream through her hard work. The next day at filming, she meets the director and promises to do her best. She prepares for her scene happily, while John watches proudly, glad to see her fulfilling her dream. However, she overhears staff gossiping that she only got the role through connections. Shocked, she learns John arranged it and becomes upset, deciding to withdraw from the role. When John comes to check on her, he is surprised she gave up such a big opportunity. So-hee sits alone, feeling sad, reading supportive messages from her family but unsure what to tell them. John approaches her, asking why she withdrew, but she lashes out, hitting him with a pen, crying that she wanted to succeed through her own effort. She vows to take revenge on him. Determined, So-hee calls Young and agrees to marry him. John is stunned by this development, unable to comprehend that everything he did has failed. He rushes home, trying to convince Young to reconsider, but Young refuses. Back at her home, So-hee's family surprises her to celebrate her new role in the film. She cries and refuses to tell them she withdrew, letting them believe she is just tired. Her mother notices her distress, talks to her, gives her some saved money, and tells her to quit the job if it's too hard. So-hee is touched and thanks her mother for easing her burden. Meanwhile, John continues trying to persuade Young to change his mind. He learns Young is going to meet So-hee and lies down on the ground to block him. Young, determined, steps over him to reach her. At that moment, So-hee's friends see a photo of Young in the news, adding another layer of tension to the story. They learn that she comes from a wealthy family and recall what So-hee told them before, that he wanted to marry her. At first, they think she was lying, but suddenly So-hee enters with Young to formally introduce him as her fiancé. They are shocked to see him and quickly realize that she had been telling the truth. So-hee leaves them and sits with Young. He asks if she is certain about her decision, and she tells him that she wants to help him. Meanwhile, John feels guilty about what he did to So-hee last time and repeatedly goes to her house to apologize, waiting outside to talk to her. Her sister's husband sees him and mistakes him for a colleague, taking him inside. When So-hee returns, she is surprised to see John sitting with her family. Angry, she takes him outside to talk, telling him to leave and never come back. Suddenly, she sees her mother returning from the market. Fearing that her mother will learn she quit her job, she quickly gets into John's car and asks him to drive to a remote location so they can speak freely. So-hee's imagination runs wild, suspecting that John brought her there to harm her. She grabs a brick to defend herself, warning him, "Do you think I'm naive? That I'll let you take me to some isolated place to get rid of me?" No, I'm prepared. John explains that this is the land he purchased for his project. He tells her that if she agrees to marry Young, her grandfather will never approve, and Young's dream will be ruined. John kneels on the ground, apologizing for what he did, assuming it will make things harder for her. But so he laughs. She tells him not to worry, explaining that she underwent a procedure and is fine. She leaves, and John tries to follow, but suddenly the groom from the wedding arrives. The two men had come to celebrate and are shocked to see Sohee. They think she is the bride's friend and insist on inviting them to their home. Sohee and Young reluctantly agree and have lunch together, jokingly dropping food on each other. After lunch, John learns from the bride that Sohee was not actually her friend and only acted the part for money. Surprised, John decides to use this against her. He confronts her and threatens to expose her. But just then, the villagers arrive, upset that he promised to complete a project that would benefit the community. Tense and unsure, John doesn't know what to do. So he decides to help him in exchange for keeping her secret. Using her acting skills, she convinces the villagers that the project will proceed as planned, explaining that John was delayed due to an accident. Her performance works. The villagers believe her, and she entertains them by singing and dancing. John is grateful, thanks her, and apologizes for arranging her role through connections. So he forgives him, telling him she isn't upset, and their relationship improves. Meanwhile, Young meets his wealthy cousin and tells her that he knows she loves John. He asks her to be honest about her feelings. A journalist spies on them and photographs them. The next day, Sohee sits with her family and announces that she has decided to marry Young. Everyone is surprised, as she had previously rejected the idea of marriage. They are astonished at how quickly she changed her mind. She then meets Young in disguise, asking him to sign the contract. She writes all her conditions. First, if they ever divorce, the reason must be that she left him, to protect her reputation. Second, they must treat each other like siblings. No one is allowed to get too close or even hold her hand. Young laughs but agrees to all her terms and signs the contract. They go together to buy wedding rings, then enter a clothing store. Sohee is indecisive about which dresses to choose, but Young buys them both, as well as anything else she wants. At night, he takes her home to introduce her to his grandfather and the rest of the family. They share a meal, and Sohee pretends to be attentive to him, handing him food in front of John. The grandfather is displeased by her presence and asks to speak with her alone. Young worries and wants to accompany her, but she reassures him. In his office, the grandfather questions why she changed her mind after initially agreeing to divorce. Sohee uses her acting skills and successfully convinces him. After she leaves, the grandfather tells Young he approves of the marriage, but he must bring something from America and live with the family, as he will become the company's future leader. Young's relatives, driven by greed, become upset. One even insults Young, calling him illegitimate, but the grandfather strikes him with a pen and expels him. Meanwhile, John is convinced that it is in Young's best interest to marry his wealthy cousin. He tries to push Sohee away, telling her to be with Young because he is handsome and rich. But she refuses, saying she has no feelings for him. Surprised, John, who is handsome and used to being accepted, is rejected for the first time. Determined, he challenges her, declaring that he will make her fall in love with him. At that moment, Young's cousin leaves the house with another woman. Among them, a girl named Safra sees John and hits him with a pen, saying that they take advantage of him and his brother and will never consider them part of the family. John is upset and can't respond, but Sohee defends him, holding his hands and warning Safra that if she comes near him again, she'll regret it. John is moved by what Sohee did and begins to admire her. The next day, Sohee is still upset about what happened. She plays boxing with her sister's husband to distract herself, overpowering and defeating him, even breaking a bone in his face until her sister intervenes and separates them. Later, Sohee recalls John's words, and suddenly he appears in front of her with a luxury car, trying to impress her. He asks her to ride with him, treats her kindly, and tells her that if she becomes his partner, he will make her feel like a princess. She refuses, saying it's impossible, so John decides to give her space. He takes her on a plane, inviting her to the cinema and buying her an expensive dress. When she wears it, he admires her beauty. They watch a romantic film and spend a lovely time together, making Sohee feel like she's living the happiest moments of her life. Afterwards, John takes her to meet her favorite director. Sohee is stunned to see her in person and can't believe she is standing before her. She greets the director joyfully and gets her autograph. Next, John takes her to a famous sweets shop, buying everything she desires. At the end of the day, they go to a hotel. He asks her to wait while he gets the key to her room. There, she sees the actress who had worked with her, dressed in a luxurious gown, the only piece of its kind, and notices her staring enviously. She accuses John of stealing it, which upsets Sohee. At that moment, the actress's assistant confesses that he couldn't book any rooms because a very wealthy person reserved all of them. John arrives and explains that he reserved the entire hotel, handing Sohee the key. The actress feels jealous and threatens to spread rumors, but John is unafraid. He warns her that it was Sohee who rode the horse in her place and got injured, and tells her that if she comes near Sohee again, she'll regret it. He takes Sohee by the hand and leads her to her room. Sohee is happy with what John did, pleased that someone defended her. She is surprised to find that he has prepared dinner with all her favorite foods. She eats with him joyfully, growing more fond of him, but eventually feels tired and falls asleep. John respects her rest, supporting her head with his hands, captivated by her beauty. The next morning, Sohee wakes on the bed and finds John asleep on the couch. She moves closer, watching him as he sleeps, admiring his handsomeness and care. Suddenly, he opens his eyes, startling her. She tells him she needs to return home so her family doesn't worry. John takes her, and they board a plane. Suddenly, a storm begins with heavy rain. John becomes scared, recalling the day his mother died in a car accident caused by rain. He trembles, which worries Sohee. She holds his hands to calm him and closes the windows until the storm subsides. When they return home, Young comes to meet Sohee's family, getting to know them. Her mother asks how long they've known each other. Each family member gives a different answer, nervously pretending they were joking. Sohee is upset at the idea of marrying someone she doesn't love. She meets her friends and thinks about what John did for her, realizing she admires him. Suddenly, she receives a message from him, asking her to come to a restaurant. Excited, she goes, thinking he wants to see her. But when she arrives, someone else is waiting. It turns out John had arranged the meeting, and she is surprised. A man behaves inappropriately, asking her to go to his house. Angry, she throws water in his face, but he threatens to spread rumors about John if she leaves. Sohee reluctantly complies and drinks with him. Suddenly, John arrives, drinks in her place, and warns the man never to come near her again. He takes her away, apologizing for what happened. She feels dizzy and embarrassed. John confesses that he likes her, moving closer. Sohee is nervous, thinking he will hug her, but he faints and falls asleep on her shoulder. The next day, John wakes up, remembering what happened and feeling embarrassed for confessing his feelings. He sees her nephew in front of him and is surprised. He realizes the child spent the night in Sohee's room and gives him money to leave without her noticing, assuring the boy that she isn't there. John feels relieved and leaves, only to find the rest of her family waiting outside. Embarrassed, he is welcomed and served breakfast, as he is the brother of the groom who will marry their daughter. Sohee arrives and speaks to him privately, showing him a video recorded the previous day. She is shocked to see John acting dizzy and unconscious, dancing and making strange gestures. Embarrassed, John chases her to retrieve the phone and delete the video, but Sohee stumbles. Of course, in a romantic scene, the two of them keep staring at each other, both embarrassed, before we cut away. Suddenly, the doorbell rings and they realize Young is waiting outside. Sohee goes out to talk to him. Young is upset because she disappeared, didn't answer him, and didn't go with him to sign the marriage contract. Sohee apologizes, saying she was busy, but Young insists she travel with him to America. John overhears and realizes that Young is trying to escape his responsibility for the company. He goes out to confront him, and is surprised to see that Young had stayed at Sohee's place. He gets upset and starts to leave, but John follows. When they return home, John asks Young why he wants to leave and abandon her. Young breaks his heart by saying, "I'm no longer a child, and you're not my father to take care of me," which upsets John. He goes to work feeling dejected because he wants to stay with her and refuses to let her go, insisting he is her older brother. Young's assistant informs him that his wealthy cousin helped with his project, and even convinced their grandfather to approve it. John is surprised and decides to thank her, but she is jealous of his relationship with Sohee. She questions him about his opinion of Sohee and whether he likes her. He tells her he could never like someone like her because she is bold and does anything for money. Suddenly, Sohee appears from behind and hits him on the head with her bag, having overheard this and realizing it hurt her heart. John chases after her, trying to make amends, but she refuses and leaves, leaving him embarrassed. He returns home and sits with his dog, recounting what happened. Later, Sohee returns home, and the director calls, offering her a role in a new movie. She apologizes, saying she's busy, surprising the director as she had dreamed of such an opportunity. She explains that tomorrow is the anniversary of Young's father's death and that she will accompany him to visit the grave. The next day, Young waits for her in front of the house with John accompanying him. So-hee reluctantly rides with them. Throughout the journey, they bicker like children, which confuses Young. They arrive at the grave of Young's mother. The grandfather is deeply affected and still unable to overcome his daughter's death. He acknowledges So-hee, telling her she will be like a mother to his son and reassures her that Young is doing well. Young's assistant tells So-hee that John feels guilty, blaming himself for his mother's death. He recounts how, as a child, John was lured by someone claiming to be his mother's friend, resulting in an accident that killed her during a storm. This is why John fears rain and cannot forgive himself. So-hee is moved by his story and recalls the day he panicked during the flight, finally understanding the reason. They all sit together. John tries to make amends, persistently bothering her, but she tells her grandfather she wants to show him something on her phone. John worries that she might have seen the embarrassing video from before, but it turns out to be a picture of the grandfather with Young, which delights him. Suddenly, a journalist who has been following Young appears, threatening them with photos. The grandfather becomes furious, fights with the journalist, and wants to strike him, but Young calms him down and takes him away. So-hee and John continue alone, but she notices a car following them. She decides to escape, driving at top speed with expert skill. John is terrified and asks her to let him out, but she refuses. She successfully evades the tail and takes him to a safe location. As she tries to get out, she slips and nearly falls, but John catches her just in time, holding her close. She places her hand on his head to shield him from the rain. John realizes he has fallen in love with her, thinking of her constantly, imagining her everywhere. Back home, he prays and does yoga to try to forget her, but it's futile. Young sees him and tries to talk, but John is upset because Young plans to leave for America. That night, So-hee speaks with her family and informs them that she will marry next week, surprising them because she had previously refused. They scramble to prepare for the wedding. So-hee leaves them and goes to her room, attempting to contact John, but he does not answer. Every day, John goes to the club, trying to distract himself, yet he keeps seeing her in the books he reads and the movies he watches. At night, a young man asks him to take a photo with his girlfriend. John agrees and takes the phone, but So-hee appears, standing in front of the camera. John is startled, thinking he is imagining things, and lets her go, running away. When he returns home, he sees her with Young and thinks she is a ghost. Afraid, he enters his room. So-hee is surprised and goes to talk to him, asking why he is ignoring her. She mentions the wedding date, but he responds coldly, saying he isn't interested and doesn't plan to attend. So-hee is upset and leaves, throwing her umbrella when she returns home. The next day, John goes out with his cousin to distract himself and try to stop thinking about So-hee. They play and joke around all day, and by the end, his cousin confesses that she has feelings for him. John feels embarrassed and doesn't respond. When he returns home, he finds Young waiting and asks if John really doesn't plan to attend the wedding. John avoids the question, saying he's tired, and retreats to his room. The next day, So-hee visits Young's house so her family can meet his grandfather and relatives. They are impressed by the size of the house, and the grandfather warmly welcomes them, inviting everyone to dinner. So-hee is surprised to see John there but ignores him, refusing to speak with him. The two families discuss the wedding arrangements, while John and So-hee exchange glances from afar. After dinner, So-hee refuses to leave with her family, claiming she has other errands. Once her family leaves, she talks to John, asking why he attended the dinner despite not agreeing to it. John explains that he did it for his brother, prioritizing Young's well-being even at the cost of his own happiness. He gives her a gift for the wedding and wishes her a happy life with Young before leaving. So-hee feels upset, remembering that she and Young have feelings for each other, though Young hasn't noticed. The next day, John decides to occupy himself to forget So-hee. He visits his wealthy cousin, telling her he wants to give himself time to understand his own feelings for her. This way, he hopes to confirm his love for her. Meanwhile, So-hee tries to sleep but can't stop thinking about John. A journalist comes to her house asking for her, but her family lies, claiming she isn't home. When So-hee realizes the situation is escalating, she packs her things and leaves the house to escape the journalists, taking refuge at Young's place until the wedding day. Later, John returns from work, expecting the house to be empty. He goes to the bathroom for a shower and is shocked to find So-hee sitting there, waiting. Both are embarrassed upon seeing each other. John rushes to put on clothes and apologizes, explaining that it's his brother's house and she can stay as she wishes. He pretends to be indifferent but is secretly annoyed, thinking she had been alone with Young in his room, unaware that the marriage is fake. The next day, So-hee wakes up to find John has prepared breakfast for her. However, he refuses to eat with her and maintains a formal demeanor, treating her as his brother's wife. She gets frustrated, eating alone. After finishing, she goes to clean the dishes, but John does it for her, even taking her clothes to wash himself, leaving her feeling like an unwelcome guest. So he feels uneasy and wishes things could return to how they were before. The following day, she disguises herself and goes to meet her friend, fearing journalists might be watching. Her friend comments on how lucky she is to be famous and engaged to a wealthy man. So he confesses that she feels troubled and unable to be her true self. At that moment, Sohee's sister enters her room, intending to move in. She discovers the fake marriage contract Sohee signed with Young and realizes they have been pretending. When Sohee returns home, she finds her sister waiting. They argue, and Sohee ends up hitting her, breaking her nose. She tries to calm her down, explaining everything, but her sister refuses to accept it, fearing their family would be upset. Sohee explains that she promised Young she would help him and cannot abandon him. At the same time, she feels conflicted about marrying under a fake contract. She spends the night thinking about everything. John sees her and approaches, apologizing and promising to treat her well. Sohee is moved by his words, wanting to confess the truth, but ultimately holds back. The next day, she goes with Young to choose a wedding dress. The dress looks beautiful on her, yet she remains unsettled, thinking of John and wishing she could admit her feelings to him. As she leaves, she is surprised to find John standing in front of her. He takes her hand and leaves with her. Sohee is shocked by his actions, but John explains he knows Young doesn't love her and urges her to cancel the wedding if she doesn't love him either. She refuses. They return home to find Young waiting, worried about her. He notices she came back with John and suspects she may be upset, but she reassures him that she asked John to bring her because she felt unprepared in her dress. Young is skeptical but lets her rest. Sohee spends the night thinking about John, unable to sleep. She wants to confess her feelings to him, and at the same time, John is awake, also wanting to confess his true feelings. Both of them are scared and reconsider their words. The next day, Sohee sees John on his way to work and asks him not to interfere in her life. John is hurt by her words, but leaves her and walks away. Young sees them and thinks John is upsetting her, but Sohee quickly changes the topic, saying she wants to go back to live with her family before the wedding. Her family sees her and assumes she had an argument with Young, fearing that the wedding might be ruined. Sohee feels guilty for deceiving them. She goes to her sister, who tries to comfort her and lift her spirits. The next day, Sohee decides to do one final acting role before retiring and getting married. John wants to reconcile with her, so he goes to the filming location. He sees her wearing a beautiful dress and is struck by her beauty. He decides to bring her gifts and food to encourage her. He is visibly proud of her and is surprised when he sees her performing an action scene, displaying professional martial arts skills and defeating the enemies who try to intimidate her. John is impressed by her talent. When the scene ends, he applauds her, amazed by her performance. He sits with her, praising her work and telling her that one day she could become a famous actress. Sohee is happy with his words and thanks him, letting him escort her home. However, his cousin is waiting outside and becomes jealous when she sees them together. She teases Sohee, claiming that she and John love each other and will be a family, which upsets Sohee. She ends up sitting alone in the garden all night. Meanwhile, John has an argument with his brother, accusing him of being selfish and exploiting Sohee because he doesn't truly love her. Young gets angry and strikes John with a pen. John wants to hit back, but restrains himself out of love for his brother. He leaves the house and calls Sohee, saying he's outside and wants to meet her one last time. Sohee is surprised but goes to see what he wants. Gathering courage, John confesses his feelings to her, telling her that he loves her. Sohee is shocked and nervous, unable to respond, and walks away unsure of what to say. John is hurt, thinking she rejected him and prepares to leave, but suddenly Sohee returns. She hits him playfully while crying because he was late and confesses that she loves him too. They embrace and agree not to waste any more time. John decides to take her on a trip. They board a bus and go to the beach, walking along the shore happily, enjoying the day until nightfall. They have breakfast at a restaurant the next morning, then go shopping for new clothes, picking outfits for each other. They stroll through the market, laughing, and later see two people riding bicycles. They decide to race each other and enjoy the fun. At the end of the day, they see an elderly woman planting in the field and decide to help her. She thanks them, invites them to dinner, and offers them a room to stay overnight. There is only one empty room, which makes the couple feel embarrassed because she assumes they are married. John struggles to sleep, so he sits by the sea, and Sohee joins him. He tells her how much he admired her, but had to hide his feelings to try to forget her. Sohee is moved and admits she liked him too, but was afraid to confess. They agree to stay together no matter what, and she sleeps on his shoulder through the night. The next day, they return to the city. So-hee feels conflicted and wants to tell Young the truth, but John refuses and asks her to let him speak to Young first, promising he will convince him. So-hee trusts him, says goodbye, and returns home. John goes to his company and calls Young, apologizing for their last argument and expressing his wish to speak with him. Young's grandfather arrives and treats John well in front of the employees. He is surprised and pleased that John finally confessed, though he is upset that John's main focus now is marrying So-hee. John decides to meet his cousin and confesses the truth, apologizing that he cannot love her as he promised. She is hurt and realizes that John is in love with So-hee, crying because she loves him. That night, So-hee sits with her family but keeps thinking about John, feeling his absence. When she enters her room, she hears him calling her and is surprised to see him outside. She is happy, and they go for a walk holding hands. He tells her that his grandfather finally recognized him at the company, which makes her happy. When she notices he seems unhappy, she asks why, and John explains that he no longer cares about the company. All he wants is to be with her publicly. So he is touched and promises to stay by his side no matter what. They continue walking together all night. Meanwhile, Young is painting in his studio. Suddenly, his jealous cousin appears. Young is surprised because she does not like him and asks what she wants. She shows him a photo of So-hee with John, laughing and claiming that the woman he was supposed to marry is betraying him with his brother. Young is shocked and enraged. The next day, he asks to speak with her. So-hee wants to confess the truth, but she is surprised that he knows everything and apologizes to So-hee for hiding things from him. He asks if John knows their marriage was fake. At that moment, John walks in and overhears everything. He is shocked that she was deceiving him and recalls thinking she had been deceiving him all along. Angry and hurt, he leaves. So-hee runs after him to talk, but he doesn't give her a chance. He's furious. She wanted to explain that she didn't trust him before, which is why she hadn't told him, but he leaves her and walks away. So-hee wants to follow him, but Young stops her, fearing the press might take pictures. She returns home, thinking over what happened, trying to call John, but he doesn't answer. The next day, Young comes to take her so they can complete the marriage procedures and travel to America. On the way, So-hee apologizes to him and says she can't marry him or travel with him. She confesses that she loves John and wants to stay with him. She gets out of the car crying and goes to her friend's house, confused and unsure what to do because she wants John to reconcile with her by any means. Suddenly, John's wealthy cousin calls, asking to speak with her. So-hee is surprised and decides to meet her. There, John's cousin confesses that John loves her and is willing to sacrifice his company for her. She asks about So-hee's feelings, and So-hee admits she loves John too, but is upset that he refused to hear her, stayed angry with her, and didn't want to talk to her. She drinks to forget but feels dizzy and starts hallucinating. John's cousin calls him to come. Even though he is upset with her, he worries about her. Hearing her voice, he runs to her, and when he arrives, he finds her sitting on the ground. He carries her on his back and walks with her. On the way, So-hee apologizes repeatedly, telling him she loves him and didn't mean to deceive him. John is touched and finally decides to forgive her. He takes her home so she can rest, watching her sleep, admiring her beauty, with hearts and butterflies in his eyes. The next day, So-hee wakes up surprised to see that he stayed beside her all night. She touches his face to make sure she isn't dreaming. He hugs her and promises never to leave her again. So-hee is happy that they reconciled and returned to the way things were before. John leaves for work but finds his jealous cousin waiting. She threatens to reveal pictures of him with So-hee, but he asks her not to. He learns that she and Young will refuse to take over the company presidency, but she refuses and decides to humiliate him further, throwing him to the ground and laughing. Later, she returns home happy but overhears John's grandfather talking to his lawyer. He says that even if Young and John refuse to run the company, he would never allow that wretched girl to become president. So he is upset and confronts him, asking why he's treating her that way despite being the most deserving. He refuses to answer and orders her to stay away from John and Young, kicking her out of his office. Anger and resentment take over her. She calls the press to release the photos. The next day, news of So-hee and John's relationship spreads everywhere. People gossip and treat So-hee badly, thinking she is greedy and trying to come between the two brothers. But she doesn't care, and only thinks about John, worried he might get hurt because of her. At that time, John's grandfather sees the news and urges him to hold a press conference to deny the rumors. John tells him the news is true, revealing that he loves So-hee and will never leave her. He decides to stand by her and protect her. He finds the press waiting outside her house. So-hee's sister tells him to stay away until things settle, so he obeys. Young feels guilty and decides to reveal the truth, that his marriage was fake. But John beats him to it, holding a press conference where he takes full responsibility for everything. He declares publicly that So-hee is innocent, and he had tried to approach her, but she refused. So-hee watches the conference shocked, realizing he sacrificed himself to protect her and his brother. She decides to run to defend him, but arrives too late. The conference has ended. She searches for him everywhere but can't find him and breaks down, sitting on the ground crying. She returns home to her family, asking her mother to stay away from John because he isn't good for her. So-hee becomes angry and explains the truth to them. John lied to protect her from rumors. She apologizes for lying to them and clarifies that her marriage to Young was fake and that she loves John. Her mother is surprised but hugs her to comfort her. Later, Young finds out what happened and returns home, and Young is upset and surprised to find John waiting for him. He asks why John did what he did. John says, "You're my only brother, and I have to protect you." He asks Young to marry So-hee, take care of her, and help her try to forget him. John bids him farewell and leaves, deciding to sacrifice himself and leave the city so he won't cause any more problems. But John keeps thinking about So-hee, imagining her everywhere. He misses her and wants to talk to her but refuses to do so. Meanwhile, So-hee is also constantly thinking about him, searching for him every day. She goes to the beach where they first met but still cannot find him. She sends him messages, asking him to return, but he doesn't respond. The next day, her grandfather comes to meet her and urges her to marry Young so she doesn't waste the sacrifice John made. She refuses, explaining that she loves John as much as he loves her and would never marry anyone else. Before leaving, she advises her grandfather to treat his grandchildren well, reminding him to balance the company's interests with their happiness. The grandfather is moved by her words and realizes he had been too harsh, focusing only on the company and not on their well-being. Later, as she leaves, So-hee is surprised to see that Young held a press conference admitting that his marriage with her was fake. He also defends his brother John, saying that John and So-hee love each other. So-hee is shocked by these events. Young calls her from the airport to let her know he has returned to America, apologizes for causing her problems, and reassures her that he will come back during a holiday to see her because she is his dearest friend. So-hee is moved and cries. Meanwhile, John's jealous cousin meets with a lawyer to find out why her grandfather dislikes her. The lawyer reveals that her father had loved John's mother and wanted to marry her against her will. When she tried to escape, he chased her in a car until she had an accident and died. So-hee is shocked, realizing her father was the culprit. She feels guilty for treating John badly all these years when he was innocent. The next day, So-hee thinks about John again. She goes to meet his wealthy cousin to ask about him. The cousin tells her that she is the only one who can find him. Confused, So-hee decides to visit the old lady's house where John stayed. She finds him there. John is surprised to see her, thinking he is dreaming. They decide to spend the day together since she is there, walking along the beach and enjoying the day. At the end of the day, So-hee asks why he had stayed away from her. He explains that he didn't want to cause her any trouble. So-hee respects his decision, says goodbye, and cries. They agree to separate. A year passes. Each focuses on their own life. So-hee returns to acting, this time landing major roles. She becomes a famous actress. Meanwhile, John leaves the company to pursue his dream project, but cannot forget So-hee. On the anniversary of his mother's death, he goes to visit her grave and finds his grandfather there. John talks with him, deciding to learn the truth about his mother's death. His grandfather explains that on the day of the accident, he had tried to save her, but she insisted that John be saved first. Sadly, the car exploded afterward, killing her. He tells John not to feel guilty and that he would have done the same if time had allowed. John is moved and forgives his grandfather, who also apologizes for treating him harshly in the past. Meanwhile, So-hee is waiting for him with an umbrella to protect him from the rain. Both are happy to see each other. They sit together, talking about their lives in the past years. John pretends he has been busy and unable to watch her films, but at home, he watches them, hearts appearing in his eyes. A week later, Young returns from his vacation. So-hee goes to greet him at the airport, driving her car this time. She tells him she has finally achieved her dream and become a famous, wealthy actress. Young is proud of her. At home, John prepares her favorite meal and they all enjoy it together. They advise Young to reconcile with So-hee since he still loves her, though he hesitates because of his grandfather. The next day, Young plans a trip to speak to her, but his grandfather reminds him that he saw him with So-hee at John's mother's grave and encourages him to return to her. John decides to go, pretending he is returning her umbrella. Sohee is surprised because it's sunny and not raining, but she asks him to drive her to the studio, and he agrees. John plans to watch her acting, but sees her filming a romantic scene with another actor. Feeling jealous, he argues with the actor to keep him away. When he fails, he drinks to forget. After filming, Sohee notices him hallucinating and takes him home. The next day, John wakes up with her family, apologizes, and confesses that he loves Sohee, asking for their blessing. Later, he walks with Sohee, asking her to return to him and marry him, promising to make her happy. She is overjoyed and, of course, agrees. John hugs her. As expected, the couple reunites. A week later, the wedding day arrives. Sohee wears the same wedding dress she had chosen with Young before, impressing everyone with her beauty. A sudden rain falls during the ceremony, making her worried, but John reassures her, saying, "I'm marrying you, no matter what happens, even if there's an earthquake." He holds her hand, running through the rain with her, both laughing. And that's it, my friend. Their sweet story ends here after a long journey, with the most important thing being a happy ending. The best part? A happy, satisfying conclusion.